What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another week in review video where each week of the NFL season we go back and look at the content. I look at my content because I like to review what I did. We're going to look at my cash game lineup. We're going to look at my Geeks pick sheets for Draftkings and Fanduel, see where we went right, see what went wrong, see what we can tweak, see if we did well, and hopefully everybody, all of you guys, had a great week 9. I had a very, very strong week 9. A couple of very close to a tournament win, but a couple of really nice lineups. I think a lot of the picks really hit the nail on the head. We had some chalk explosions as well, and that always happens every single week. So hopefully a lot of you guys wound up on the right group. But let's do this shit. Week 9 in review. This is what I like to do before we move on to week 10. Again, my name is Kevin Allen, DFS Army, breaking down NFL games every single week. You're here on the YouTube channel. Like and subscribe, all that good stuff. So let's take a look at week 9. And here's the Geeks pick sheet, and I'll kind of go through these players a little bit and see what went right and what went wrong about the group. You know, kind of get a sense of things here. So, you know, let's take a look right now. And as you can see here, this is the Geeks pick sheet. This is the DraftKings version. And if you take a close look, you'll see that, you know, this was a big group. So a lot of weeks you'll see like 5 or 6 or 4 quarterbacks, 5 or 6 maybe. This week was a little bit weird. Number one, there was some salary issues on DraftKings in particular where they jacked up prices across the board, especially for players in good matchups. And they've done it again in week 10. So it's something to be aware of, that DraftKings is now heavily adjusting things for matchups. And so it's making it more difficult to target really great matchups because you're really not getting as much value. So that made things interesting. But, you know, it starts and stops with the only 5-star play I had of the week, Russell Wilson at quarterback. He was a clear-cut play this week because what I talked about on every single podcast was anytime Russell Wilson, the Seahawks can't run the football, and especially if the opponent is scoring, Wilson is the most talented QB in the league. He's going to be answering. So anytime that's happening, and really it even fooled me, the sort of massive uptick in volume. And we'll take a look real quick at Wilson. Let's see if he's here. No. Okay. Of course, he's not. I guess he's not on the main slate on Draft. Actually, let me see if I can get it in the Thursday to Monday. But I like to show the stat line. But Wilson crushed, Lockett crushed, the entire Lockett, prohibitively expensive. But him and DK Metcalf crushed. I wrote in the notes I'd consider running out Wilson naked in cash. I think that was a great play, mainly because to afford Lockett was very, very difficult with Wilson in a week like this if you wanted to pay up at running back. So in the end, if you played Russell Wilson, that worked out really well for you. That was the 5-star play. And some other plays that we put out as potential cash plays. Now, Matthew Stafford, great play as well. I think he scored 30 fantasy points this week, so can't go wrong. I almost gave you a little bit of warning here. You know, if you see a guy 2 stars all the way up at this price, GPP only, this is a warning to say this is a tricky spot. And we saw that Aaron Rodgers is better at home. So, you know, a road quarterback that can potentially rely on the run, it didn't work out well for Rodgers. And this was a bit of a warning more than anything else. Now, in fairness, I think Kirk Cousins had a pretty good game. Another warning off of Josh Allen. Again, I want to check some of these scores because I didn't play Josh Allen, for example. So I'm not sure what he did. But let me see if I can't get the Thursday through Monday slate going here as we're talking. There we go. Okay. So let's see if we can grab some of these quarterbacks who just to look at their stat lines. But my concern with Josh Allen was last week was that just their opponent wasn't going to be scoring, and so it wouldn't push the action. And there you have it, another mediocre day from him. So you got kind of a little bit of warning there about Allen. He was high owned, and that's why I mentioned him. I like to give a little bit of a write-up on that stuff. Jameis Winston, great play every single week, always crushes. Love Jameis Winston. So you got another heavy exposure play that no one was on, 24 fantasy points last week. So really strong we were really strong at the quarterback position overall. Sam Darnold, again, a bit of quite a disappointment actually, and that really sucked. But at 5,900, we talked about it. I wasn't going to play him anyway, so it wasn't a playable at the salary. I liked Sam Darnold. I liked that game environment, and I ended up going with a lot of Ryan Fitzpatrick, mainly because the salary was so high. Here, I write here, they should be able to style on the Dolphins. Wrong. But the salary is on the high side, priced similarly to a much more consistent Jameis Winston. So I like the salary relief of kind of stacking him up with some Jets players, but really the better play at quarterback, if I was going to be in this price range, was Jameis Winston. And I think it was pretty clear by the way it was marked. Again, another kind of warning on Derek Carr, no ceiling. I did not play him. He was being discussed heavily as a cash game play on the week, but I didn't play him. In my cash game, another guy I didn't play, but I thought was viable, was Phillip Rivers. And I mentioned here in the write-up that I had concerns that actually, no. Yeah, my main concern, actually, what got me off of Phillip Rivers later in the week was just hearing that they changed offensive coordinators. They were going to concentrate on the run. And I think a lot of it, in the end of the day, was just what happened. Rivers could have had a great game, but they have two running backs to feed. There's a lot of players on this team that need to be fed. And of course, with Rodgers not doing anything in the game and the Chargers defense taking over, they just didn't need that much for Rivers. I wound up in my primary cash lineup going with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Again, I wanted to use, and I'll show you that lineup here. I wanted to use on DraftKings. I wanted to use a cheaper quarterback so that I could get to the stud running backs. Now, somebody mentioned Dalvin Cook was a bust. Yeah, he sucked. And I watched that game. I rewatched all of the game. By the way, let me give a quick recommendation to everybody. If you go on YouTube and click in NFL highlights, the NFL puts out these 10-minute or 15-minute highlight videos of every game where you could see basically every play that was anything interesting. What I do on Monday nights is I watch every game review to see what I missed. And in the case of Dalvin Cook, I watched it, and Minnesota just kept bringing in these other two running backs. It was weird. And guys who hadn't been getting carries, not just Madison, there was another guy too. So they were just spelling him a lot. And that was really the problem. He just didn't get the volume that we needed to be successful. That was the issue with him. He only got 45 receiving yards, only 4 receptions, 71 rushes. He didn't cross the line. He didn't get a touchdown. So, he could have gotten there, but he didn't. And it was a lot of money to pay. So, but in order to afford Dalvin Cook in this cash lineup, I went with Ryan Fitzpatrick and I stacked him with Preston Williams, which was very good. That's kind of, there's a few spots where we went right in this lineup, and actually it was good enough to cash, but we'll continue down the sheet here as you've got a glimpse. So I wound up with Fitzpatrick. I made a lot of tournament lineups with Russell Wilson, and I did a little more heavily targeting Russell Wilson on Fanduel where he was relatively cheaper. All right, let's continue down the list. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey did Christian McCaffrey things every single week, but a lot of people got nailed in this. And let's go back and rehash week 9. We knew and we discussed this. There were 2 ways to approach the slate. Jalen Samuels was an absolute lock, right? 5-star, 4K, all in. I believe I used the term all in here, but he's an all-in play. We talked about it in Slack. We talked about it in every video. So that was already locked in. So who were the other plays? And here were the names that I gave you guys and the names that I had in mind. It was McCaffrey, Cook, and McCaffrey was always going to be a lock. You don't not play Christian McCaffrey when you can afford him. So the choice was between Dalvin Cook, core play, Le'Veon Bell, all play, 4-star, Josh Jacobs, all play, 4-star, right? So as I was personally building lineups, I would build some lineups with McCaffrey, Cook, and those were my cheapest quarterback lineups. Then I would try to build some lineups with McCaffrey and Jacobs. I didn't do as much with, my issue with Le'Veon Bell was always he was very close in price to Dalvin Cook, or at least closer. I wanted more savings. So I tended to wind up with a McCaffrey-Jacobs approach. And then, of course, Samuels was always the third guy. I did definitely make some Mark Walton lineups as well. I liked that Walton was getting a full workload. So I played him. He got 7 fantasy points, but he fucking sucks. And now he's out of the league, whatever. But he fucking sucked. But I like workload and volume. So I had lineups with Walton, Samuels, McCaffrey. I had some McCaffrey Cook, of course. I did that in the cash because I wanted to pay up. I also had a lot of McCaffrey, Jacobs. And like I said, as you can see here, Jacobs went off. So if you just played McCaffrey, Jacobs, and Samuels, and again, we were all in on Samuels and McCaffrey, so it was just about hitting that third one. You were already starting up very, very close to the nuts. Okay? So look at that. If you just look at the sheet here and you look at the core / alls, you got 1, 2, 3, 4. You had 5 running backs to choose from. 4 out of the 5 did spectacular this week. Even Le'Veon Bell, he got you 20 points. So he got you 20 for 2K less than Dalvin Cook. That worked really well. Josh Jacobs for 3K less got you about 25 points. Let's take a look at Jacobs. All right. He got you about 25 points. Right. So that was a very, very 27 points. That was a spectacular home run. Now let's continue looking at the sheet. It's very important how to interpret this. So we had the plays that we liked a lot. As you could see, Galladay, Lockett, I locked him in exclusively with Russell Wilson. Now I wish that I had more. I do. But actually, it was Godwin and Evans who were my top personal exposures. Those were the 2 I was going to. I could show you another lineup with Evans in there, with Preston Williams, but I had Robbie Anderson. Everything gets burned. But it was Godwin and Evans who I love the most. The reason I didn't love Lockett and I was only allowing him in game stacks was it worked in game stacks, so it didn't matter. But he's not enough of a volume wide receiver for me. He's not enough of a volume guy to really justify this kind of salary level. And it's one of the things I talked about. He's just not getting enough volume to justify the salary. Now, this was another week where, between Galladay also and Marvin Jones Jr., both guys went off. So you could have gone crazy. But the fear that I had came true. And the fear was another guy who's not getting enough volume. So I said, I don't like him in cash. I'll pair him up with Matt Stafford, and that's it. Because in cash games, I need more volume than this. And you'll see this week when we do a first look, if I do a first look, you'll see some volume wide receivers that we could pay up for and have a much better chance of locking in 10 to 12 targets. We'll take a look at, so Evans and, Evans went crazy yesterday, and that if I needed one more catch, we'll talk about that in a second, but I had Evans in my best tournament stack. Well, I'll show you that one here. My tournament stack, the top one that I had put together, scored 216 on Fanduel, and we're about to win the Sunday snap when we went to overtime. It's a Wilson, Lockett, Evans stack. Well, I'll get into this. You know what? Let me not jump over. I get excited. What's up, guys? All right, so you saw the running back position. We literally crushed it this week. Actually, it's funny. I don't see Gordon in here. I must have put him on the FanDuel one. Let me just see if I have Gordon in there, because I used quite a bit of Melvin Gordon on FanDuel. I really love this salary level. No one was on him. That play crushed, by the way. So I wound up with about 15-20%. I used a lot of Derrick Henry over on FanDuel as well. A lot of these plays were just better on FanDuel. A lot of them. Jacobs, Le'Veon Bell was a lot cheaper. We were able to afford our core plays if we wanted. And again, I had a lot of Cook, but one thing I was off, I wasn't on Chubb, so we avoided that disaster. I wasn't on Aaron Jones, so we avoided that disaster. Thank goodness, right? Those guys fucking blew up a lot of lineups at very high chalk. So part of what I try to do is get you off, not just put you on the better plays, but get off some plays that I think are wrong. I wrote, he's very expensive for a timeshare back. Return, I'm probably going to eat into his target share. This was a warning. Stay away from this guy. A lot of people played him anyway. You ignore my warnings. That's fine. But you don't even see Jones on my. I want to mention who's left out here, because a lot of people tell me, oh, you don't even fucking put everybody on your list. No, I don't. Some of these are here as a warning, and other ones are here are left out on purpose. There's no Aaron Jones on this list, and Aaron Jones fucking busted, and he busted a lot of lineups this week. I knew that was going to happen, or I had a strong feeling. He was too expensive for his workload, and especially with Adams back, Rodgers has a Chubb for Devontae Adams. He's going to throw to him. So I thought that a lot of the action that Aaron Jones had been getting was just because there was no one else to throw to. And as you could see, he did a lot of his damage in the passing game. And the other thing is you have a lot of it was just a bad play. And anybody who played it, especially in cash, you're just bad at this. Like, get better. Get better at DFS and get better at reading my sheet if you're doing this from DFS Army, because the guy wasn't on the sheet, right? So where were we? Okay, wide receiver position, just what worked and what didn't. Godwin, I wrote it here. It's always one or the other guy. We talked about it on every podcast last week. It's important. Patrick, he's in. Yeah, man. I'm itching to make it, but we don't rush the sheet. The sheet's gotta happen natural. We don't rush the sheet, but it's very important to know how to interpret the sheet and what to do. This sheet led to Millie Makers 2 weeks in a row, or 2 weeks this season already, and probably more. And when I say Millie Makers, that's the second one didn't win the Millie Maker, but it was good enough to win it. But essentially all the players on the sheet were on the Millie Maker. And I'll show you again my lineup in a minute. But I just want to go through the whole thing. So some misses. Devontae Adams, I liked him as a tournament play. It didn't really work. He was just coming back, and I thought he'd be lower owned. And that, if I was playing in that game, especially with Rodgers, I was all about Adams and Rodgers together. Allen Robinson, this is an important one. I want to talk about this for a second. Allen Robinson was chalky, Patrick Charles Damone. What does chalky mean? That means going to be high owned. Everybody's talking him up. So 11% for a wide receiver, 20%. That's what we call chalk. Okay, what's the problem with chalk? The problem with chalk is in a tournament, if you play chalky players, high owned players that are in a volatile position like wide receiver, chances are you're going to get fucked. The chalk, as we say, which means the highest owned wide receivers, have been busting at a 70 to 80% clip. So there is a theory that says if a wide receiver is going to be high owned, any pass catcher is going to be high owned, just fade it in tournaments. Because, if he does great, okay, awesome. So let's say you had 20% Godwin, which a lot of people had, and it busted their lineups this week. He was very high owned, and he busted a lot of lineups. Now, let's say Godwin goes off. Well, you still have 20,000 of the 100,000 lineups in the 100,000 entered contest to deal with, right? So what are the chances your lineup is going to be better than those 20,000 others that use this chalk guy? It's not that great. But if you had Mike Evans for a little bit lower, or if you had, Stephon Diggs or somebody else and they go off, you're getting an advantage on the field. So my best way of describing chalk and why we avoid it, and again, I shouldn't be pausing, but I do like to take Q&A. My best way to describe it is think about March Madness. You're in a March Madness pool with 100 other people. You know that the favorite team, Duke, is going to be 50% chosen as the winner. So if you choose Duke, you have to now let's say Duke has a 20% chance of actually winning the tournament, but 50% of the people in your contest are choosing Duke. So you've put yourself at a major disadvantage for winning your bracket, because not only do you only have a 2 in 10 chance of Duke actually winning, but if they do, then you still have to compete with half of the other lineups or brackets in your March Madness challenge. You have to be better than 50% of the entrants in your contest. So it's like you've set a scale so difficult to beat. Like, you really think you're better than the other 50 people who are entering the like you've set yourself up for failure. It's essentially a minus EV play to use chalk in tournaments, especially chalk wide receivers. It's the same reason as the March Madness. I never choose the favorite in March Madness. Never. I always take the third. I only want to compete with like 5% of the other brackets in my contest. So if I'm against 100 people, I think I can beat 5 with my bracket, like 5 or 10 of them, but I don't think I can beat 50 of them, or at least I don't think I've got a great chance. So if I actually worked out the probability, let's say I have a 1 in 50 chance. First, I have a 2 in 10, and then a 1 in 50 chance. So if I choose the favorite, Duke, first of all, I have to be right. And so 80% of the time, I'm already dead. Even if I'm right, so that 20% thing happens and Duke wins it. Now, I've got to beat 50 other people. So I've got a 1 in 50 chance of my bracket. So if you figure out the probability of winning, it's very, very low. It's like it's low. It's not good. So it's the same thing with playing chalk in tournaments, especially chalk that busts a lot. Again, the difference is because wide receivers bust at an 80% rate. Running backs don't bust at that level, at that rate at all. So if you could play chalk running backs because they bust at a much lower rate. So it's fine. That's my lesson on chalk. All right, let's continue with the sheet. So Allen Robinson, man, if this wasn't a lesson on not to pay up for wide receivers with a really, really shitty quarterback. That's really what it comes down to. Allen Robinson was great when he was 5,500, 53, and he was doing well, and he's getting a lot of targets. But we can't forget that this is Mitch Trubisky, and he fucking sucks. So there's just not that much passing yardage to go around in that offense. So, when Robinson became chalk, it's bad. Keenan Allen, another one. I thought he had some value at this price, but the issue, and optimizers loved Keenan. Keenan Allen was really an optimizer play. The optimizer loved Keenan Allen this week, and I think the issue is the optimizer hasn't picked up that the Chargers are there's just too many names on that team, too many players to spread it around to, and early in the season it was all Keenan Allen. Mike Williams was hurt, Henry wasn't there. There was only one running back. There's just too much going on for that team. We're going to stay away from that offense going forward. I never play Keenan Allen. I played him just a smidge this week, but I certainly didn't play him in cash. I almost never play Keenan Allen. He's all volume, and as soon as Mike Williams is there, and again the tight end Henry is there, Hunter Henry is there, and now you've got Gordon and Eckler competing for touches. It's too much going on that team. DK Metcalf crushed. I actually used a function on the domination station that only allows him to be used in game stacks with either Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston. That worked out fine. I didn't want to play him as a standalone play. I feel like if he's going off, then Russell Wilson's going off. So he should just be in those lineups. And if he's not, let's not have him destroy our other lineups. Amendola, big bust. Big bust. I think he got hurt in game. I played Amendola in one of my cash lineups, and it came back to bite me in the ass. And quite honestly, it was the reason I played him was, and he's in here, so you could see the cash lineup itself. He's in there, 5.9. I think got hurt in game, but even if he didn't, what happened was I figured with the running back situation all fucked up, that for Detroit that they would throw more to Amendola as sort of the short pass guy, but they actually brought in J.D. McKissick, and he was getting a lot of that work. So that play kind of failed. He had been coming off of a couple of really big games. 8 targets, 11 targets. He only got 5 here. So less playing time. Evidence, even most the veterans early. Yeah, you just can't count on this guy, right? So okay. We missed. I actually, unfortunately, it was between him and Curtis Samuel for me. Had I gone the other way, I really wanted DJ Moore or Curtis Samuel. They were popping the most on the optimizer this week. Everybody who used the domination station is just loaded up on Curtis Samuel and DJ Moore. They were the highest projected. And I'm going to show you why they were and why they were the better play. And again, we don't do it right every single time. Sometimes you fuck it up. But the reason Samuel was a better play, and he didn't even work out that well, I think Moore was even better, was because he's been getting 6+ targets. Like, he's very consistent with the number of targets he gets. And with the floor, he gets at least 6. He'll spike to 10 or 11 on occasion. DJ Moore was just as good, if not better, but he was a little bit more expensive last week, but he was also popping on the optimizer like crazy. And again, same reason, like he's getting even more targets, 8, 10, 9, 10. So that's what we want. And it worked out better with Moore. He was 4,800. I couldn't quite afford him in that. Oh shit. In this cash lineup. So that's, that's how it goes, man. That quick, one change. If I would, to afford him, I would have had to gone down to Mike Evans, and that would have got me the extra 100. Would have been a 30 or 40 point swing. And of course, Brait down to Doyle would have been a big swing. So we're really close on some of these, but let's continue through the list. We had Parker and Preston Williams as all plays. Preston Williams did great. Parker did just fine. AJ Brown did fine. Curtis Samuel, all play. So you see, I didn't just make that up. He's right here on the list. DJ Moore, I did not like as much as Curtis Samuel, because Curtis Samuel is cheaper. DJ Moore ended up doing better. Okay. Some other names we had: Zach Pascal, Cole Beasley scored a touchdown, did great. And if you wanted to punt with Demaryius Thomas, I did not use him. So that's the sheet. Jeremy's, Noah Fant crushed it. Yeah, Jeremy's mentioning Noah Fant. Let's look at tight end. Tight end was tough for me this week. Across the board, I don't think Waller had a good game. I didn't play him. There was no way to afford an expensive tight end. Yeah, he didn't do much. There was no way to afford a very expensive tight end this week and really make it work. Hunter Henry was a pay-up option. He did work out, but again, very tough to pay up. I actually went the pay down route for most of it, but he 15 points. Okay, he did fine. He did fine. Ertz crushed it. Loved Ertz. Brait, disaster. Jack Doyle did pretty good. So tight end, always a little sketchy. If you played Ertz, you did really well. If you played Hunter Henry, you did fine. If you played Jack Doyle, who was probably the best of all the plays here, Doyle did great, but the main reason was he was cheap. Like, the main thing was he was cheap. And I had Cameron Brait too as a play. I thought him and Doyle were pretty similar. Doyle did not get like enough action to really excite me per se, but he scored a touchdown. He got you 11 points and he made value. I was basically looking at tight end like, let me just pay down and hopefully not get a 0. Of course, I got the fucking 0 out of Cameron Brait, but again, it didn't matter in this lineup because paying down for Brait allowed me to get the Steelers in there. Had I paid up for Ertz, I would have to go up another 1,700. I couldn't get the Steelers in. I would have to shave funds off elsewhere. It could have worked out, but whatever. I just want to point out, this was my cash lineup. The reason I'm showing it here, this is a $25 double up. The cash line was 157 for the last person in. This lineup, even with the 0, even with Amendola, even with Cook, even with Godwin not doing a whole lot, even with all of that, 163 points was good enough to score, to be just fine in the money. I cashed all my cash games. It was great. And what I want to point out with this is, use the sheet, make a cash game lineup. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be good, above average. You could cash in these. This is not a perfect lineup. Again, I could have gone to Doyle here, added another 11, saved 100. If I save the 100, I get up to DJ Moore potentially. That adds another 20, another 15. So the tournament winner would have went down from Cook to Josh Jacobs and some other things. So we were really close, even with the cash lineup, to a big score. I used this in the DFS Daily Fantasy Football Championships lineup. So those of you who are in the Daily Fantasy Football Championships contest with me can always see my cash lineup. It's been there every week. I'm moving on in the Pro League. I'm moving on in the Rec League. It's week 10. Still there, towards the top. Been playing my cash lineups every single week. Okay, a couple questions. We'll take a couple questions real quick, and then I'll show you my tournament lineup, and I want to show you how the stack worked out and how the domination station just made it awesome. But yeah, Doyle make value. Making value, what we look at in daily fantasy football in terms of value is salary-based expectations. Okay, value on Draftkings is essentially 3 times salary. So let's say I have a player like Cameron Brait, and he's 3. Now, what does that mean? My total salary cap on DraftKings is about 50,000, right? I need about 3x would be 150 fantasy points. And the idea being, at about 150 fantasy points, you can cash in your cash games. As you see this week, it took 157, but we were close to 150, and that's usually where it hangs out. It could be 165. So 3 to 3.1 times salary is what we talk about when we say making value. Now, tournament value requires at least 4 times salary. And when I say 4 times, I mean 5,000 times 4, 20,000, or 20 fantasy points. So remove the zeros, right? So making value means 3x, 4x the salary. 3x is cash value, 4x plus is tournament value. So when you look at these plays, you say, all right, here's a guy in Cameron Braid. He's 3K. What do I need for him to do to make value? Well, 4x of 3K is 12 fantasy points. Usually for cheaper, though, the secondary part that makes it more complicated is the cheaper the player is, the higher the multiple we really want. Like, we don't want a 3K player getting 12. We'd really like him to get 20. More like what Preston Williams is the perfect example. This is a tournament play, right? He's a 4K player, got you 24 fantasy points. So 16, 20, 24. That's 6x value. That's what you need. Floyd is asking about chalk. We play chalk at running back. We avoid chalk at pass catching positions like wide receiver and tight end. The chalk fucking busts. So yes, you want to play the good plays. Much more on NBA. I load up on chalk and value like a freaking crazed coupon lady at the supermarket with the shopping cart and a bag and a plastic bag over my fucking head. Okay, that's what I do for NBA, because NBA is a predictable sport. NFL is so unpredictable that we want to avoid ownership. Ownership is like the most important thing. You know, when I first got started breaking down these games, breaking down daily fantasy football back in 2012, there was no such thing as chalk. Getting on the chalk was the goal. Like, holy shit. How did you know that, I had figured out that if you look at high game totals, those games tended to score, if I would check the Vegas lines. That's why my weekly podcast is called Geek's Vegas Lines. When I started the Geeks Vegas Lines back in 2012, no one was looking at Vegas lines for fantasy football. It wasn't being used. And I figured out when I first started on Fanduel in 2012, I was like, you know something? If I look at the Vegas lines and look at games with high totals, I can predict which games will produce better fantasy points performances. Like, it sounds so stupid and so basic right now. That was like, what? What a cool thing. No one was doing that. So I created the Geeks Vegas Lines. It was an article I would write. I would break down, I would put the lines of each game and the game totals and the team totals and all of that, and be like, hey, this game has a 52-point over-under. That's the one we need to get players from. Like, it was innovative. It was getting 100,000 views a month. It's crazy. Times have changed now. We have to look at ownership even more because everybody's on the good plays. We know who they are. All you have to do is sort the domination station. All you have to do is look at ownership projections to know who the market thinks is a good play. And we have to outsmart the market if we're going to win a tournament. So that's why we're always doing that. That's why I look at ownership percentages, and it's so important. That's why I got you guys on Ryan Fitzpatrick last week at 3% ownership. Or the week before, when I got everybody on Jameis Winston at under 1% ownership. That's how you win tournaments. So anyway, let's take a look at my, let me go back to the sheet. Did I finish here? No, looking through the wide receiver position. So yeah, we looked over the wide receivers. A lot of good. Always going to have busts in the wide receiver position. That's why I do a lot of them. You got to pick and choose. What I try to do with wide receivers is what I try to do with wide receivers. Buffalo, you have no idea, man. I go back to 2011, 12, and no one else was doing it. No one else. I never saw anybody else doing it. I didn't know anything. I started a blog. I didn't know any other sites. I was just like, holy shit, I figured something out. If you look at the Vegas lines and the totals, you can get on the good plays. Skylar's asking, what are the good plays? Play the good plays. You listen to my pods, you'll know what the good plays are. Look at the DVP, look at the research station, look at the projections, look at the ownership projections. The ownership projections tell you what the good plays are. All right, so where were we? Yeah, tight end, always going to be sketchy. Wide receiver, always going to be sketchy in NFL, so we want to stay away from chalk. Defense, I think we're on some good plays. Steelers, Panthers were great. Steelers were great. That's where I lived for the most part, Panthers and Steelers. Got a little bit of Browns. I don't think that worked out all that well. And a little bit of Bills was fine. I played some Redskins. We knew they were going to get us close to a 0. But I am learning. I don't love these fucking zeros from the defense. So, like I said, I loved Steelers because they weren't that much more expensive than the Redskins. And the Steelers put up points on defense every single week. They put up points. So I was like, I looked at their game logs and I'm like, you know what? after Hilton. So this was a late add for me to the sheet, actually, and it really worked out. As you can see, I used Steelers defense in my cash lineup here because I wanted to avoid that like that 3 that I knew I was going to get from the Redskins. They fucking suck. They were just cheap. So I was like, if I could pay up just a little bit more and get to the Steelers, I figured I can get you 9-10 points. Didn't expect what they did, but certainly was happy about it. I also like the Samuels Steelers stack from I just like having that secondary stack in my lineup. Yeah, Steelers defense. Also the Panthers. The Panthers and the Steelers have been scoring on defense, so I figured, fuck it, let's go with these defenses that are scoring, and they're too cheap relative to the other ones. Now, let's take a look at my best lineup on Fanduel. I want to show it, not just to humble brag. I like to humble brag. We came in 9th in this contest. Fucking $200 bullshit. I was in 5th place going into overtime. And then let me just show you what this lineup is to get started. We've got Russell Wilson stacked with Tyler Lockett. This is a game stack where we have a comeback with Mike Evans. Now I've got a secondary stack in this lineup, Hockenson and Marvin Jones Jr. So this is the type of lineup that the domination station creates when you use it right now. Secondary correlated stack. I got Marvin Jones Jr. in there with TJ. Now, would have been nice if we got Marvin Jones Jr. and Kenny Golladay in there. That would have been great, but you couldn't afford it. So Marvin Jones Jr., Tyler Lockett tied with Russell Wilson, Mike Evans tied with Russell Wilson in a game stack. I've got my secondary stack, Marvin Jones Jr., TJ Hockenson. Great. I've got another secondary stack in here. Panthers defense, Christian McCaffrey. Awesome. Worked out really well. Melvin Gordon, I told you, I got onto him late. The coach was talking about we need to get back to the running game. The coach was talking about it. So I was like, fuck it, I'm going to play some Melvin Gordon because everybody's playing that other combination. This is what I talked about. Everybody's playing McCaffrey, Cook. You know, that was a very common thing. I had Samuels 100%. He was in every lineup. There was never going to be a lineup without Jalen Samuels. It was too cheap. And if you don't understand why you didn't watch my pods, you didn't listen to anything I did all week. If you didn't have 100% Jalen Samuel, you clearly just didn't hang with me for week 9. Everybody who listened to any pod I did, any of the videos I do like 20. I do so many of them every week. The Players Club. If you listen to nothing else and you're a DFS Army subscriber, make sure you always listen to watch the Players Club. That's Saturday. That's where I bring it all together. But I love everything we do. Tomorrow we'll do the Geeks Vegas lines. It's more of a broad show looking at betting angles. It looks at every game. We look at the betting angles. We look at DFS angle. We don't dive in too deep on DFS because we're trying to get that thing. We're talk betting angles as well. It's hard to do it in an hour. I can't get that in depth. Then you've got the Wolf Pack where I've got some pros, some sharp guys on with me on Thursdays. And then, of course, on Saturday, I bring it all together. I bring you a breakdown of my sheet, some sample lineups, all that great stuff. So if you're a DFS Army subscriber, I mean, you're well prepared for every NFL week. At least you know what I'm doing. So in this lineup, this goes to overtime. I'm in 5th place. All I need, everybody ahead of me has a double stack with Wilson. And this is very important as well. I want to show you guys what the winning lineup looked like, but everybody ahead of me, the importance of stacking is so clear. You need to look at the top of your tournaments every single week to understand. You got to look at these guys. Look at the winner. But anyway, what happened in overtime was I needed Evans to get a catch. Tampa never got the football. It just went Russell Wilson. You know, they got it first. They scored, and that was it. And the DK Metcalf people all passed me. So let me show you what a winning lineup looks like, guys, because I want you to understand when I say certain things. Now, he did some shit I wouldn't have done, but, you know, hey, fuck it. He won and I didn't. Okay. But look what a winning lineup. Every day we talk about the importance of stacking, secondary stacks, all of this shit. Now, take a look at what the winner did. I don't know this guy. He's got a symbol from some site that's not DFS Army, so he's the enemy. But he played it pretty good this week, and probably because he was on this Noah Fant. But nonetheless, Wilson, Metcalf. So he does a double stack. Wilson, Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. Got both of them in there. Come back with Mike Evans. Yes, please. Now, how do you afford it? That's what he had to do. He had to go to Preston Williams. So, Jalen Samuels, Christian McCaffrey, we're all on that, locked in 100%. Everybody had the same group. Dude, don't fucking fade Christian McCaffrey. Don't. It's stupid. Yes, not contrarian. Stupid. Don't do that. Now, fade. Don't have 0. The guy goes off for 40. Play some Cook. Play some McCaffrey. Don't do that. Don't fade him. No. Tournaments, I don't care. Remember, we fade wide receiver chalk, not running back. Running back chalk is good chalk. Don't do that. Always play Christian McCaffrey. Get some exposure. You don't have to be over the field. He wasn't that high owned. He was only 34%. So I went 55% McCaffrey. I went 100% Samuels, right? I'm over the field, but I didn't go 100% on either guy. I had about 40% Dalvin Cook. So looking at this lineup, though, what did he do different? Number one, so again, game stack. He's got the same 2 guys. 1, 2, 3. We talk about game stacks. A quarterback with 2 wide receivers, 1 player from the opposing team. Awesome. He's got a secondary correlated stack. Not that this mattered, but it was Panthers, McCaffrey, secondary correlated. It's not important. So how did he differentiate his lineup? Noah Fant, 2% owned. And he allowed a wide receiver. Now, I wouldn't have done this. I don't think it was necessary, and I think it was unnecessary. That's not what won him, but he allowed wide receiver to go into. Now, I'll show you mine again. He allowed wide receiver in his flex. I do not allow wide receivers in my flex on FanDuel. I don't allow it. Now, why don't I allow it? Because I want touchdown scorers on FanDuel. I allow wide receivers in my flex on DraftKings because wide receivers can churn out enough points with PPR to sort of equal the production of running backs without getting a touchdown. And if they get a touchdown, bonus, awesome. But on FanDuel, I never do it because if you look at player props, if you look at odds, the chances of a wide receiver scoring touchdown are never nearly as good as the chance of running back scoring touchdowns. So again, let's look at my lineup again real quick, just to show. Listen, it wasn't Melvin Gordon that cost me. That's not the killer. What killed me is he had Noah Fant and I had TJ Hawkinson. I mean, that's it. 9 points. That's the difference. That was the difference between the win and the loss. Hawkinson, Marvin Jones Jr., that's cool. The DK Metcalf have, but Marvin Jones Jr. had a great day too. So that was the difference he got on low owned. And it's funny, people, we talked about Noah Fant in Slack a little bit. It wasn't me. I was not pushing him, but I don't know if it was either Hunter or Josh, DFS Up North, or one of the regulars in our Slack channel, in our Geek Speak channel. That's my crew. You guys who hang out in the Geek Speak channel and Slack, you guys are like my crew, right? I know you, all the crew in there. So just know I appreciate that, and I know you guys like my crew. Everybody has their own little crew, I guess, within DFSR. I got my Geek Speakers. But within the channel, Noah Fant was mentioned, and the thought was like, hey, first-time QB in there. They usually like to lean on the tight end. And you know what? It was sharp and it worked. And I didn't diss it. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. I know young QB is going to lean on his tight end. The check down. I didn't expect a massive day, but I thought it was an acceptable play. So that does it. So this was my best lineup in tournaments. Let's see. I did good in the contest overall. It was 350. What was this? 450 to enter, 600 out. And that's what happens. You need to win these contests if you're going to make any money. Had a shot at the 15K. I'll take it. Yes. You always play. I don't think I've ever made a FanDuel lineup without an RB in the flex. I always play RB in the flex. FanDuel is all about touchdowns. And look at the player props. The worst running backs are like plus 110 to score a touchdown. The best wide receivers get there. Buffo, you just got to be around for a little bit, man. This is years. Do you go on do you turn on a what's that game, Fortnite, that the youngsters play, right? You think you can jump on Fortnite like now and be awesome at it in a week? No, these people have like a 5-year head start on you playing that shit. Right? You got to learn it. Got to get the system down. Listen to every pod. It takes a lot of time. NFL is much harder. By the way, I just want to point out, NFL is much harder. It's really a labor of love compared to like NBA, especially for someone like me. I'm very value oriented. I'm very much into the good play, playing the good plays, right? And with NBA, you just check the optimizer, you check the list, and you kind of see, oh shit, these guys are really standing out. Like you'll have people get cute and be like, I don't want to play that fucking guy. He's starting at point guard, and yeah, everybody's going to play him. He's going to be high owned. He fucking sucks. Cam, whatever. I don't even know the names. I don't care. I haven't watched an NBA game in 20 years. I don't watch that shit. I love football. I love watching it. I love analyzing it. That's why you see me here breaking down the football games, because I love the sport. I also love MMA. Off season, I'll be talking about MMA because that's the shit I love. I don't do it in season because my dedication to my DFS Army brothers and sisters is, listen, I'm going to put my full effort into this. I will not be distracted by other things. That's what you need to do to break down football. It is so involved. But one of the funny things, like last night, I'm in between breaking down the showdowns for the single games, I'm like, hey, let me check the notes real quick. And I slapped together some NBA lot and fucking crushed it. Just used the domination station, locked in the players that, Keg basically said to hit the lock button on. It went fucking, it was amazing. I almost won all these tournaments. You'll see all these DFS Army members up there. Like it took me like an hour. Like NFL, I'll put 60 hours into this week, 50 hours of research and study and breakdown and pods and everything. NBA, I've spent like an hour and made more money. That's how it goes. But Buffalo, yeah, you're not going to learn something. You're competing against people who have been doing this for 7, 8, 9 years that have a feel for it. And NFL is such a volatile sport week to week. Like I heard it pro and a guy that I like a lot talking about in one of their videos, talking about how they're attacking a certain contest, a more expensive type of a contest, like one of the more expensive ones. And their contention was they felt like over the course of the next few years that they have a shot at taking it down. And you have to understand that mindset. Like too many people are looking at their NFL production week to week and thinking, oh, I fucking suck. I lost last week. That's not how NFL works. NFL is like over the course of a season, did you win a tournament? I got lucky. I won my tournament like week 1. I won a $24,000 win. Week 4, I won a $10,000 ticket to King of the Beach. So I felt like week 1, I told my friends, I was like, my season's paid for, guys. I won a $24K on Draftkings. Everything else is bonus. Like even if I have a shit rest of the year, it's pretty much all paid for. Like I'm not going to lose this 23 grand. So that was awesome. But that's how my season goes every year. And if I can win a second one over the course of a season, then that's amazing. Then it was a spectacular season. So it was different weeks, the 10K win. But for me, oh my gosh, check Twitter right now, dude. There is some shit going down. I'm not going to mention names of other companies, but there are some assholes out there, fucking assholes, who run these sites. And like people are just such suckers who fall for their bullshit. So they're a fucking asshole. I'm not going to name names. I don't get involved in any of that stuff between other sites. But yeah, that shit goes down. It's a competitive industry. And there's a lot of people who lie and talk shit. And so half of the people out there are scammers. Part of the deal with DFS Army and what makes us different from other sites is you don't see me posting my screenshots of my personal wins and going, join DFS Army. We produce winners. You guys see the screenshots. When I win, I always share. I share everything in Slack. Like I'm an open book. At the beginning of the season, I shared my bankroll tracker so everybody could see what I've done since I started. I'm not going to keep doing that every week. It makes me feel gross. But I wanted everybody to know, hey, this guy's a profitable player. This guy's ranked, highly. He plays for a lot of money, right? The worst case scenario is I play for a lot of money. So if you're following me, you're following a guy who's got $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 going in NFL every weekend. Now you might say, okay, fuck you. That doesn't mean you're good. Okay, whatever. I showed my tracker. You've seen my wins. It is family. That's right. Browns. That's my number one fan. Motherfucker, show your tat, brother. Can you show a screenshot? If I could do that, I would show it. But listen, that's why I've been showing my shit. I've been around forever. Been around for a long time, been doing this. I dedicate, my family knows. Don't fuck with me during football season. I'm up every night until 4 a.m. You know how I know? You know how you guys know? Because those of you in Slack, you see me there. Like, how's this guy awake right now? I'm up every night until 4 a.m. I'm researching. I'm studying. Last night I was up until 4 o'clock watching those tapes. You know, it's about 2 hours of tape study to go through all the games from the previous week. But I feel like I'm doing a disservice if I don't do that for you guys. So I want to be successful for me also. If it was just for outside, I put a lot of money into the shit. So I'm trying to make money. And I'm trying to share my research with you guys. But anyway, the more important thing, I don't know how I got off on that tangent. Oh, somebody asked about outsiders. I don't give a fuck about other groups. I'm very friendly to people. There are some people I know in the industry. I'm very friendly with them when I see them in person. I'm never a dick to anybody, or I try not to be when I meet them. And a lot of people are assholes. They're jealous. They're selfish. I meet these guys too. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck that guy. He's an asshole. But I don't say anything. I don't care. Whatever. I do my thing. I hope that you guys keep coming back because we're having success. And that's what I'm saying. When we show a screenshot, we're showing our members winning. We're not using our tools to win. I'm not showing me. Of course I'm winning. I'm playing for a lot of money. I win a lot. Or else I wouldn't be able to play for a lot of money. I lose a lot too. But when I see one of our members using the tools and winning, I'm like, that's fucking proof of concept right there beyond everything. And it's every day. For those of you who are in DFS Army, it's every day. So it's like all the time. Every day we're posting a 10K. At this point, I didn't even post them. You know, one of our guys won the MMA tournament, of course, this weekend. Like, when does that not happen? I came in second. I barely put any time into it at all. Yeah. Man, you got to put a lot of work in to be like me. Well, so what I try to do is I'm putting all these hours in. I'm trying to. That's what the Geeks Pick sheet is about, guys. You know, I put all these hours in. The reason, watch it this week. Here's a challenge for everybody who stayed with me for this long. Watch. If you're a DFS Army subscriber, one of the nice things is you can watch this sheet populate over the course of the week. Like, it's completely open. And you'll see, as I'm doing the research, I'm filling in each. It usually starts with a quarterback. I'll fill in this write-up on a quarterback. And then I'll probably, because I'm looking at a game, then I'll pop a couple of their wide receivers in there. Like, it all happens in a pattern with me. That's my process. And it takes me multiple nights. Usually it takes me over 3 nights of being up until 4 o'clock in the morning. My quiet time when I work on the sheet is usually when all the craziness, Cliff, man, thanks for staying with me, my brother. So my process is like, I need all the noise to stop. During the day, I have emails coming in. I got people fucking DMing me going nuts. And so it's very hard for me to do content. So what I do is during the week at 10 o'clock at night, every night, 11 o'clock, my whole family's asleep. Then I sit down to the computer. Let me tell you, there are times when you don't want to sit down and start working at 11 o'clock at night. You just want to go to sleep, smoke a little, watch a movie. You know what I'm saying? But now smoke a little, and then I watch some tape, football games. And then I try to figure out, all right, do some research, figure out, do I like, what am I thinking about this? So, look into the stats, dive in, do all my shit. So that's when it's happening, late night. And I'm writing these out. I'm filling out the sheet, and you'll see it get filled out over the course of the week. So that's my process. That's how I research NFL. Most of it happens between 11 p.m. and like 3 or 4 a.m. Then I get so tired I can't write anymore. That's why sometimes you get a lot of typos in there too. I'm fucking typing. It's like 3 a.m. And this stupid program here, of course, doesn't have a spell check. So sorry, if you don't like typos, go somewhere else. There's a lot of sites with writers, not players. You can't get a DFS player to write a lot. I will tell you from the point of an owner of a DFS site, the best players, they're not writing shit. Okay, they're busy playing. They don't write. So everybody who's writing, like long form articles, it's very difficult because the people who are writing, they're generally not the best players. You can't get those. They're busy. They're playing every day. And even me, I have to basically kind of give up concentrating on other sports during football season, because if I'm going to deliver this content, I have to put my full mind into it. It's just how I do it. But that's what the sheet is about. Like, we figured out, like, if I'm going to sit here and write a long form article like I used to, hey, it's harder to interpret it. It just seems sketchier. I'll give you a sheet. I'll give my confidence ratings. You see, Russell Wilson, if you played him, you won last week. That was it. If you played him in the stack, that's what won. Russell Wilson. It's right there. Every player on this list, let's see the winners sheet, just to be clear. Everybody's on my sheet except for this guy. It's usually just one. Even when our guy won the 60K last week, took the best lineup on all of Draftkings, he had everybody but one, and Joe Smith. And the one guy that wasn't on it, we talked about him in Slack, so it was there. Hell yeah, it's a grind, man. It's a fucking grind. This is a labor of love. This is a hobby, but it's a passion. If it's not your passion, you can only be so good at something. I think this is across the board for all things in life, guys. This is not just a DFS thing for me. Let me explain. I'll give you. All right. You know what? Why not? Let's have a little chat. Light a fire. Have a chat. This is a philosophy on life. And it's my philosophy. Something that I've always... Why do I call myself the geek? What is a geek? People make, oh, you're a fucking nerd. You're a geek. Okay, yeah. Yeah. Do I look like a fucking geek? Or like a nerd? Maybe. I got the glasses. But here's what, when I use the term geek, what is it to geek out on something? Thanks, OG, man. Appreciate that shit, man. I don't remember the comment, man. Tell me what it was, because I forget. Tell me. I do a lot of content, man. Remind me of what that was. But let me tell you about the geek thing. Okay, what's a geek? Geeking out on something means diving in deeper than somebody else will. You could be a Game of Thrones geek, right? What's a Game of Thrones geek? Like, you don't just watch the fucking show. You're on the message boards reading about it. You're reading the books. You're reading the fan fiction. You fucking geek out on that shit. You're talking about, hey, what happened with the Targaryens 2,000 years ago? Like, you want to dive in deep. Like, the geeks, the Game of Thrones geeks figured out that Jon, well, I'm not going to spoil it. Actually, I am going to spoil it. If you haven't watched fucking Game of Thrones by now, what the fuck is wrong with you? Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert, right? Jon is the son of Lyanna Stark. Like, we figured that shit out a long time ago. And Rhaegar, the geeks. You geek out on something. That means you go all in on it. You're obsessed with it. Okay? I geeked out on a lot of shit, man. That's my personality. When I'm interested in something, I go all in. When I got into daily fantasy sports and daily fantasy football, I was like, I must be the best at this. I started reading books. I started searching for strategies. Like, this is how I operate. It's in my DNA. I don't remember what it was, OG, but man, that sounds like something I would say. But I say ridiculous shit, man. Come on, you know that. So I have fun with these. And part of the deal is too, so yeah, I like to dive in deep on anything I'm interested in. And that could be anything. If for someone else, I have my brother-in-law, for example. My man started doing Spartan races. Next thing I know, he's a fucking Spartan racing animal. Like, he's like, dude, come with Spartan race. I'm like, it hurts me to stand up. What the fuck are you talking about, Spartan race? Right? Are you nuts? But he's like, Spartan racing. He's carrying around buckets of bricks and running up the hills. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, man? You crazy? But like, that's geeking out on something. You just get all in on something that you're interested in. And for me, that's daily fantasy sports. I love winning. I was geeking out on fantasy football before daily fantasy was a thing. I love that shit. So it was always a passion for me. I still love season-long fantasy. Fucking crushing my season-long leagues. Hell yeah. Still like it. It's not because of the money. I could probably make more money playing season-long fantasy football if I played more high stakes and concentrate. I just like winning. I want to win. I like the feeling of winning. I like I like the act of winning. I love winning money. I just like winning. Yeah, the salaries are different and the scoring systems are different between Fanduel and Draftkings. It should never be the same. But when a game goes off, you'll see a lot of players from the same game there. Absolutely. Another thing that I do, and just so, I mean, that's my geek chat, man. what's a geek? Geek out on this shit. If this is your passion, dive in as deep as you possibly can, and don't judge yourself. I mean, watch my bankroll, Matt. Don't judge yourself based on, hey, can I consistently beat 90% of other people? That you can't. I don't care what a fucking geek you are. You can't consistently beat 90% of lineups consistently. So if you judge yourself based on that, you're going to judge yourself harshly, because no one should ever be held to that standard. No one can do it. We get held to a standard. It's funny. People don't understand probability. The minute you start to understand probability, you start to get your head in the right space. What are your chances of beating 90%? No, it's only 10%, 1 in 10. Now, people think, well, if you're good, you should always do it. You should see the messages that I get on social media platforms, because I have to handle a lot of social media for DFS Army because no one else does that shit. I do everything. I have to do it. So the messages we get are so fun that people think like that you should be able to spit out a tournament winning lineup like every week, and if you don't, you suck. And it's like, so you're saying the standard you're holding me to is if I can't be the top 0.001% every single week, then not bothering. Or the people who come into our site, and they're not you guys, because you guys are here listening to this, that means you're already putting a million times more effort into this than 90% of other people. 99. You're already in the 1%. Everybody who's watching this right now. Why? Because it's Tuesday. What day is it? Monday? Tuesday. It's Tuesday. And you're sitting here watching a review pod, a review, trying to figure out, hey, what did I do right last week? What did I do wrong? What can I do better next week? You're already in the 1%. Because 99% of the people, they don't give a fuck. They're not watching this. They don't care. They don't watch any of the videos. They don't want to learn. They just want to look. They just want who's a lot. How can I win the big money? What's the lineup that will win me the big bucks? Like, I don't fucking know. You think I know what's going to beat 99,999 other lineups? Like, are you crazy? I don't fucking know. If I knew how to do that, I'd be winning. I'd be beating them every single fucking week. We could get on the right plays, and we could hope. And hey, we can look at a sheet here, and 8 of the 9 plays are on the fucking sheet. And if you can't use that to get there, then this week maybe it'll get you there next week. Buffo, we're similar. Similar passions. Similar. I'm not that into music, though. So, not that into music. The rest, yes, but not the music. So, anyway, that's my point. We'll end it here. Any other questions, if you guys have them, spit them out now. Cash games, tournaments, you see what to do. We stack the fucking lineups in tournaments. That's how you win. Go back to all of your... Here's your assignment. Whatever contest you're in, look at the top and see what they did. You know how I discovered stacking? Let's turn on the fire. If I had graphics, I'd have the fireside thing going. Let's talk about stacks for a second. How did I discover that shit? How did I discover it? Wait. How do I get me? Oh yeah, here we go. You're going to look in the camera here. How did I discover stacking? I discovered it by accident. Why? Because in 2014, I made a lineup, and just randomly it was stacked with Peyton Manning. I think it was Emmanuel Sanders on Denver. It was Noshan Marino. There was another player, Demaryius Thomas. It was like a Manning, Demaryius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders stack with Noshan Marino. And it was the first time I had won a massive tournament. It might have been 2000. I remember it was during Hurricane Irene. So let me look that up as we're talking. I want to see exactly when that was. Let me check the dates for you guys, because we'll know. It was so funny. Hurricane Irene. When was it? Oh my God, 2011. Was it Irene or Sandy? It was Irene. Fuck, this was all the way back in 2011. I can't even believe that this is even a thing. August 28th, that would not be. It must have been Sandy, maybe. When was Sandy? 2012. Yeah, it was Sandy. Okay, so it was Hurricane Sandy, October 29th, 2012. Guys, this is some real fucking talk. October 29th, 2012, Geek's first big GPP win. It was a $5 entry on Fanduel. Back then, the tournaments were so much smaller. It was 2011. And no one had heard of stacking. No one had heard of it. Wasn't a thing. And then I was like, so it was 2012. I won a tournament. I won $1,500. And you know what I did? Because I was so fucking sick. That was back when tournaments went through Monday night. I remember everything so well. I had a player going on Monday night, but the power was out. Hurricane had hit. So I couldn't watch. It was the 49ers. I think it was like Frank Gore or whoever the hell, the running back. He was the final piece in the lineup. And I was like, I knew I was in position to potentially win. I needed some points out of San Francisco defense or something. I don't remember what it was. But it was Monday. The hurricane hit. Well, everything got wiped out. This is 2012, guys. Most people hadn't heard of everybody who calls himself a fucking tout. They haven't even heard of FanDuel in 2012. I was there. I was in there for a while. Tournaments were smaller then. They couldn't fill up 100,000. There was no such thing. Your tournament had like 3,000 people in it. And so it's Tuesday morning. Power had been off. I'm like, I need to find out if I won this fucking tournament. Like, it's a disaster zone outside. I get in my car. I'm like, fuck it. Let me plug my phone in, turn the shit on. Can't get cell service. I'm like, I'm driving. So Hurricane Sandy's out there. There are trees falling everywhere. And I'm driving wherever I can. I finally get some cell phone service. I'm like, oh shit, I won $2,000, motherfucker. It was the happiest moment. It was $2,000 win. It was nothing. But that was the spark that like took me, the next year, we came in third in the Millie Maker on FanDuel and, won 20,000. And that was a massive win in 2013. And that's kind of what got me on this momentum. But, that was it, man. So I discovered then, though, that stacking worked because it was a Peyton Manning stack with Demaryius Thomas. And I think it was Emmanuel Sanders. It could have been someone else. But it's Manning for the Broncos QB with two of his. And if you look it up, you'll see. I think it was Noshawn Marino was in the lineup too. So I was like, wow, I stacked this whole team. And that's the first time I ever won a tournament. And I said, maybe that's what will lead to wins. Right? It was like a revelation. I'm like, I want to repeat what I did here. Well, what did I do? I just played a lot of players from one team in a lineup that was highly projected, and it worked. So after that, I started doing that. And then a couple of years later, it was 2014, a book came out from Jonathan Bales that talked about, I think stacking was like a component of it, like how that correlated lineups would work. And I'm like, motherfucker, I discovered this shit 2 years ago, been talking about it, but it's nice to see your research is proving what I've been doing. I remember it. I remember all of these things. Been around for a long time. So I don't know what my point was just now or what the hell I was even just saying or why. You guys ask a question, throw me off. But if you have any other questions, throw it in there or we can wrap this thing up. Oh, here we go. Here we go. A question. I love this. A hot camel. What's up, man? Or woman. Don't know. Hot camel, I feel like could be either. So here's the deal. One of the things I show in my videos every single week is how to pivot off of your you start with, this is what I do in the, I've done this in the Players Club VIP podcast the last 6 or 7 or 8 weeks. I show you how I start with a core lineup. My favorite plays, all chalk, all high owned, but my favorite plays on the slate. I set it up like a cash lineup. And then we start to pivot off for what I would do for 3 entry tournaments, which is how I like to handcraft these lineups. And what do? You go to your lineup, right? And let's just look at this, for example. Like, let's say this was a core lineup right here. So what I do is I take out my, it's not a core lineup. It's hard to look at this one. But what I do is the first thing I do is I remove the quarterback, I remove the wide receivers, and I remove the defense, right? And why am I doing that? Because I like to build, I'm going to keep my core of running backs the same. This past week, I told you, look at the sheet. I had pretty much, it was very clear who I was playing. If you looked at my sheet, you said, okay, he's playing Samuels, of course. I locked him in. I told everybody 100%. So for the other 2 spots, we had McCaffrey, Cook, Bell, and Jacobs. And that's just what I was scrolling through. I would be like, all right, let me do one. Now, I preferred McCaffrey. So I'd be like, all right, McCaffrey, Cook, Jacobs. I'd have McCaffrey, Cook, and Samuel in there this past week. And you'd see it and you'd go, all right, well, I can't afford a good quarterback with McCaffrey and Cook. You just can't afford it. Not doable. So then the first thing I do is, all right, if I drop from Cook to Jacobs, what can I do? Or to Mark Walton, who I liked, what can I do? And then, all right, now if I want to go up to Wilson and I want to afford Lockett, I can't do these two. So I would go McCaffrey, Jacobs. Let's see how that feels. All right. So you build it around, you swap the quarterback out, you swap the wide receivers out. That's how you do a hybrid off of your core. So you want to do a game stack with start with Wilson? Great. Do one like that. Then I might do a second one because in my game stack with Wilson, I also want to get either Godwin or Evans in there. So I do one with Evans. I'll do one with Godwin. And then we'll go and I'll say, all right, I also like Jameis Winston for the same stack. So I'll X out again and do a Jameis Winston one. Then I'm like, all right, well, I have this other quarterback I want to do. So a lot of, for me, is I'm going to keep my core of running backs about the same. If you know me, if you've been following me for a long time, I keep a very tight group of running backs. And my favorite thing in DFS is to go very, very heavy on the running back position and just spread out my exposure across wide receivers and tight ends and defenses. That's how I do it. There are weeks when I've gone 100% on 2 or 3 running backs in certain weeks. In NBA, I'll go 100% on players even more often. Last night, I had three all-in plays. I had 100% of 3 different guys. Sometimes I'll do that with 4 or more. I play the value in NBA. For daily fantasy football, I play the value at running back. I don't trust it as much at wide receiver. I never go all in on a wide receiver because they're so volatile. You never know. You just never know what they're going to do. I think the closest I did to that was that one week when Michael Thomas's salary went down. Samuels did not hurt. I don't know why you're saying Samuels hurt. Samuels was a great play. Jalen Samuels killed it for his 4K price point, 20 fantasy points. So this is not hurt. And even on DraftKings, he was in the Jalen Samuels for 5K. He got you almost complete tournament value. He's in the winning lineup. The guy who won used Jalen Samuels. That did not hurt. That was a great play, and you should have been on him. We told you to go 100%, and that was the correct play. Cook, that sucked. And I watched the game, and again, they just were spelling Cook. Shit happens. That's the variance, the natural variance of football. It's like, what the hell? He could have had a massive game too. And if he does, and he puts up his 29, it would have been awesome. Yeah, Samuels was a great play. If you think that you need to recheck what you think is good or bad. When you get a 5K player getting you 12 points on DraftKings, on Fanduel, and 20 points on DraftKings, that's a spectacular play. I was very happy with the all-in. The week before, I went 100% Lats Murray with DFS Army. Yeah, he killed it for 40 points, but like 39 or 29 or whatever it was, but we were 100%. Yeah, if you didn't use him, Skylar, it's because you're not doing you're not playing right. I was hoping Cook would go off as well. Listen, Dr. 2K Green, best tournament to enter. My favorite tournament is a small tournament with that costs a lot of money to get into. And Hot Camel, I got something for you here for a second, but the best tournament is a small tournament. Okay, it costs $100 to get into, and there's like 150 entrants. The best tournament is a winnable tournament. And of course, beyond that, not to just, because I love those, but another thing is on FanDuel, they have these amazing qualifiers. I wish I could show it to you. They have these like satellite things where you win tickets to stuff. And a lot of times they don't fill. Like last week, my biggest profit was I entered, and everybody can do this. I entered the same lineup that came in. Here you go. I took the same group of lineups that I entered into this contest, right? This same group of 150 that I built that wound up in 9th place. I entered it into another contest that was giving out like 5 $888 tickets to the top 5 finishers. It didn't fill. So I think it was supposed to be 150,000 entries. There was only like 70,000. And then I got one. So for my $37.50, I won an $888 entry. So you want to talk about how you take your bankroll from nothing to massive? Try winning an $888 ticket on $37.50 worth of entries and then cashing that $888 ticket, even for just a double. And you just went from $37.50 to $1,600 in your account. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to show you, assuming I cash in that shit, which I hope I do, but I got an $888 an NFL ticket. I will play it. And if that cashes, it's going to bring back at least $1,500, maybe $2K, maybe $100K. But it started with $37.50 worth of entries. I want to talk to this. Hot Camel, you don't have to play cash, guys. This is another common misconception. You don't have to play cash. But what you should not do, I got a fucking hair in my mouth. Sorry. What you should not do is only play massive tournaments. Let me explain the difference. Here, those of you stuck with me for an hour and 15 minutes, let me explain something. There's a difference between this tournament right here, what you're seeing on screen, which is a mass multi-entry tournament, 39,000 entrants, okay? That's a lot of people. You're almost always going to lose money in a contest. Look, I needed to finish 9th, and it's hard just to like make a little bit of profit. Now, of course, I had a shot at 15K, and I knew the risks going in. I knew what I was doing. This was the only tournament left. The issue, this wasn't even, the other ones were too, even last night, I don't like top heavy tournaments. If it's 100K snap and it's 25K to first, 25% of the prize pool, I just won't enter it. This one only had 15% of the prize pool to first. And even with that, you see here, the drop off is so crazy. 9th place got me $200. First place was 15,000. Like that drop off is ridiculous. It's hard to win these. You'll never be profitable attacking only this. But man, if I could just show you, if I could just show you, what you want to enter is the $200 contest with 150 entrants. Why? Because you can win that, and you don't have to be perfect to cash in it. Here, you need perfection. This lineup is perfection. The smaller contest, their history page is shit. It would take me an hour to bring it up. Let me see if I can do this. I'm going to try. It's so bad. Their history page is just, it takes forever to load. Okay, here we go. Let me see if I can find it. But I'll try to find a contest but a high dollar contest to show you like what the winning lineup. Let me find one here. It's this is not an easy thing to do live. You really have to have this prepared. The way that, yeah, this is all shit. I think that, oh yeah, it went to page 1. Forget it. Here's the satellite to the monster. I'll show that one thing. No, even this was from last night. All right, here's one from NBA, though, just to show you the same shit I was talking about last night, just before. I won that $888 ticket. Here's another NBA one from last night. Look at your boy in 4th place, and another DFS Army here in 3rd. Almost got that $888 ticket. 25, 26, $30 in. How often do you need to win this? Once out of every 30 times 100 times you enter. Not even. 50 times. 40 times, whatever. Only got to win it once in a while. We're not going to be as high on... so anyway, Hot Camel, what was I saying? You don't have to only enter cash games. You don't have to enter cash games at all, but don't only enter mass multi-entry tournaments. If you want to be a tournament player, make sure that you focus your entries on small tournaments, 50 entrants, 100 man, 200 man, 300 man, that size. If you're only going to enter the 15,000, the 20,000, the 50,000 person contest, you're going to lose money most of the time. I don't care how good you are. You're going to lose money most of the time. That's how it works. It will always be that way. Nothing is changing it. So if you want to play smart and you don't want to do, oh, here we go. Wife is calling, so I got to get the fuck out of here. You don't want to do cash games, that's fine, but build some hybrid lineups, enter them in small tournaments, 50 man, 100 man. That's where you're going to make your money, because the cash lineup will cash in those. The cash lineup ain't going to cash. Like, you need to be top 20%. You can cash in those other ones. You don't have to be perfect. All right. Going to wrap it up, guys. You're right, Mad Mike. It is like Powerball. Take care, everyone. I'll be back with all my content this week. Geeks Picks, Vegas Lines tomorrow, Wolfpack on Thursday, Players Club on Saturday. Like, subscribe. Let us know you're watching this shit. Let us know you like it. Comment, all of that good stuff. Let me know. And, we're going to keep doing these videos and hopefully helping more and more people crush. Don't forget to join DFS Army as a VIP if you want all the goodies. That's it. Deuces.